All right, and we are live now with the Clint Files number 2 with Joe Stevens.
How we doing?
Good. He's waving for you audio people.
Are we going to do both, or is this just audio?
No, it's both. But that's why I started the sound recorder, because then I'll just use that instead of having to rip it off of the internet, which I think kills the quality.
Yeah, sounds a lot better.
Yeah. So this is my first 2 podcast day. I ended up having a guy on earlier that was supplement geek, supplement_geek.com, and he researches all of them and all the ingredients and what actually ends up working. And I basically was picking his brain about the natural things that I used, like turmeric for swelling and stuff like that, versus the anti-inflammatories that they give you at the hospital, which don't do shit. And
know all about that.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this one we're going to talk about training for motocross.
Yeah.
And Joe, if anybody doesn't know, if you can see his shirt, he owns Motocross Athlete Development, which now weren't you going to change the name?
Yeah, it's Motor Athlete Development, or M.A.D, M.A.D, whatever. It's got its abbreviations. I've been running with that for the past 6-7 years. So originally we were, specializing with the gym. I had the gym training motocross guys and training regular clientele. So the M.A.D Sports Performance was like another offset of it, where we do team sport training and athlete training with different disciplines. But nowadays, I had the race team for the last couple of years, and that was the M.A.D team, M.A.D whatever sponsor we had following that. So now I've actually got new logos and everything just done, and it's basically just Joe Stevens, M.A.D MX Coaching. So cool. That kind of incorporates the on the bike and off the bike stuff. So that's sort of where it's at for moving forward.
Okay, so in this we're going to not even necessarily talk about, we can talk about, we're not going to talk about technique. We're going to just talk about training and fitness for motocross.
Yeah.
So I guess, what's your most... I guess everybody just wants to know what a baseline, training schedule should be like, throughout the week.
Yeah, I think the biggest, before I start this, I'll start with a disclaimer. Is every trainer is different. Every trainer has a different background. Every rider is different, and it's I'm not so naive as to think that my program is gospel. I just have developed it. I'm not a big, I'll be honest, I'm not a massive education guy as far as I did my qualifications in personal training, but I'm more of a on-the-job learner, as in I know my program was developed with me and my riders, and it was developed through race results and through feedback, and I just sort of know what works for me and my guys. But you get other trainers that have, university degrees, and they have sports science concepts in their programs, and they can tell you down to a lot more of a fine detail as to why things work. Not really how my program works. It's more of a, it's just something that's been trial and tested, and I know it works. So to start with, it's more of a, people come to me and they say, oh, hey, what should I be doing? Well, a lot of people just don't really understand what motocross requires of your body. And I think until people are aware of that, which not a lot of people are, then you can be more specific as far as what that rider needs to work on, So, to me, you start off with the biggest neglect in motocross, which is strength training. You have to be very strong. You have to be very coordinated, and you have to be flexible to ride a dirt bike the way these modern era, fuel-injected 4-strokes, whatever you want to call them, that requires a lot of strength. And most motocross guys have never really tried strength training. There's still a lot of myth around that, it's going to give me arm pump, and I can't lift weights, and I just got to do cardio, bro, and blah blah blah.
And and it will, but you got to do a ton of just weights. Like the big, super big guys that are just that's all they do, bodybuilders or whatever. They're probably gonna
Yeah,
pump up.
100%. And what you find is, and I'm sure you find this with the guys you talk with as well, is that most of the riders that approach me, I'm not the first person they've spoke with about personal training or a program. So they've gone to your Anytime Fitness or whatever, your chain gym, and they've gone to Mr. Bodybuilder trainer. Hey man, I ride motocross. Can you help me? And he's like, yeah, and he's giving him a bodybuilding split program because that's just what he gives to everyone.
Right.
And then this guy's done that program for 2 or 3 months, and then he's put on a whole bunch of muscle, and he is starting to pump up, and he is struggling with riding, and then they get that sour taste in their mouth about lifting weights is bad, So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. Is the first thing I say to a lot of the guys. They go, "Well, do you do any weight training? Do you have any sort of background in weight training, strength training, and then your core strength and development kind of a follow on from that? Because if your core is not strong and that's not going to help as far as being able to do compounded lifting movements." Anyway, getting a bit ahead of myself, but basically we'd start off with that and seeing where they're at, and then typically in that category I'm going to come up with also, so how many bones have you broken, what have you got going on with knees, ankles, hips, femurs, shoulders, the typical laundry list of injuries that moto guys have. And then they go, I've had this many shoulder dislocations, I've had a recove knee, I've had this, I've had that, and then on top of that, well, how did you do your rehab on that? Oh, well, I just kind of went to physio for 6 weeks and then I started riding again. So then we have joints on top of that, which have multiple injuries, no stability, and are most likely going to break or dislocate as soon as you hit the ground again.
Well, and besides that, and then I know from being hurt is that, so like you said, and I mean, I'm sure a regular physical therapy place, if you're not going to a real aggressive sports physical therapy place, then they're just going to get you good enough to walk around and play golf and stuff. And then if you haven't built all the muscles up around that knee or shoulder or whatever really good, you can ride. Like, I've been in plenty of situations where I couldn't walk. I've had to have people start my bike and then I can ride it. But I'm totally unbalanced. I'm compensating for the one leg that hurts or the one leg that's not as strong. And that obviously is going to end up being a detriment to your riding.
100%. And that's something that usually occurs, and I think this pod here is going to take a lot of offsets because this training spectrum is such a broad area where there's so many related parts to, it's not just training, an injury with motocross is so big. So it's like, getting back to that, a lot of the riders I work with, by the time they come to me at 15, 16, is typically when they start looking at being a bit more structured with their parents going, hey, he's going to go pro in a couple of years. We want to start getting him used to training. Well, he's already broke 5 bones. He's already had 3 surgeries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they typically, parents at first, if they're a first generation family in the sport, they're a little naive to, we just went to our local doctor and then the local hospital did the surgery and it was, we think it's all good. And what I do is, as soon as the guys are in my program, I have a physio. Now the physio, John Park, he travels with the National Motocross and the Supercross series. He's part of the Race Safe program, which is like our version of the, like the Asterix medical you guys have at the races.
Yeah.
So he's the physio on tour that works with all the riders.
He's the Australian Dr. G.
Basically, he trained. he worked with everyone. So my guys, if it's soft tissue related, they'll go to John. I have the other doctor in that program, Greg Harris. He's I think he calls himself the motorsport doctor. But anyway, if it's a bone, if it's a bone break or an injury like that, they go to see him, and then he has doctors and surgeons that he will refer them to that we know that they're going to get the right surgery and not have some backyard doctor fuse their ankle or their wrist so they can't ever
Right.
ride a bike again, So yeah, that's something that, again, we try to make sure that, or I try to make sure that these parents and these young guys, because, we go pro at 16. That's what motocross is. As soon as you're done with your last year of juniors at 16, you go pro. You have a very small window to not have bad joint issues and make sure that your years of being an early pro rider actually make a difference. So, again, big part of it is making sure the parents are educated on injuries and rehab. But when they come to me, usually, like I said, they've already broken a bunch of bones. They have joints they've got scar tissue, they've got range of motion issues, they have dislocation issues. And a lot of that transfers into endurance on the bike. They favour one leg, they favour one wrist. They can't do a full motor with good technique. It's on and on and on. So, again, that's the next questions I'll ask is about injuries. And typically between the weightlifting or strength training experience and injuries, you get a pretty broad spectrum of answers, and you get to know where that rider's at. And then we can start to implement a bit of an idea on where that rider's going to go with this program.
Now, with like when we talk about weight training, I know a lot of people are, still probably poo-pooing it, but you're not talking about sitting there and doing preacher curls and then doing a different type of curl and just doing 5 bicep motions in a row one day, and then the next day you go in and then we're going to blow our backs out, and that's what more of a bodybuilding
typically
is.
You hear weightlifting and you think bodybuilding split, chest day, back bis and tris, shoulders, and you just everyone gets big, and that's what people associate with weight training. And that's, if they've never had a sports training background, that's what they associate with weight training. So, the difference would be what we're looking for is, you're looking for a coordinated body, lean muscle mass, a lot of posterior strength as far as motocross, these new generation 4-strokes. There's a lot of pulling. There's a lot of rear body strength needed to keep that bike in check, because a modern day 450 is trying to rip your arms off. So a lot of it is making sure that we're strong posteriorly. Leg strength is a huge thing in motocross, between your glutes and your hammies and basically the big muscle groups that actually control the bike. So if someone, and again, I don't want to get super into detail with how many reps we do and break down things completely, because it would take all day. But if someone, again, the first thing that I try to change with the rider that I start working with in the gym is it's a lot of legs, a lot of leg strength, and making sure that we have endurance and strength in the legs that's going to transfer over to the bike. So whether we're doing activation exercises, just to, if someone's blown out, they broke a femur, they've done an ACL, they've done an ankle, typically their activation with their glutes and their hammies and the posterior side of their body is gone. They don't have any activation on that backside, so they're quad dominant, so their quads do everything, which leads to fatigue very quickly. They don't have a lot of endurance because they're only using one muscle group on the biggest part of their body. So a lot of activation work, a lot of band work, a lot of glute bridges, a lot of raises, one leg deadlifts. That's just to get things going before we would even start to progress to actually, once we can activate the muscle groups we need, then we can progress to working on the more compounded movements like your deadlifts, like your squats, like your lunges. So it's a progression of going from pretty much fixing what needs to be fixed from injuries before we can progress to building strength.
That's my last 8 years, 6 years were pretty, I had the heaviest injuries that I've ever had, and as far as my shoulder and then this other leg, and a lot of it was just even getting my so I actually ripped my rear deltoid completely off my shoulder, and I broke my femur at the same time. So the doctors are like, the first doctor I went to wasn't a sports guy, and he's like, "We're not going to touch your shoulder till you're off crutches." And I'm like, "Listen, I can push down. Just mess me up. Like, let me sit around for 1 month." So I waited 5 months. So then the rear deltoid started to atrophy. So then,
Yeah.
I could figure out, I could still lift my arm up, but I had to go out to the side and then go up. And I literally started by picking my arm up and then fighting it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually, got to the point where now I can pick it up pretty good. It's still a little bit weaker, but yeah, you always end up compensating for anything like that. And then, like you said, because you're off balance, you're not riding with the correct technique. Now you end up fatiguing faster because you're just muscling it.
That's it. And it's you and that's the thing. At your age, you're older, you've had injuries, and somewhat your own body. And I think that's what a lot of young riders don't. They don't have the experience to know their own body, and you're just talking to a doctor, and they take that doctor's word as gospel. And sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you got to know what's going on with yourself and ask questions. And I liken it to this. Like, you remember my elbow? Like, this thing is toasted.
Yeah.
And I broke this elbow first, and then I broke scaphoid. I broke my wrist. That was at yours that day. I broke my wrist.
Yeah.
I dislocated this shoulder a bunch of times. I've done rotator cuff damage, and by the time I'd had 10 years on this joint, like this whole left arm, I'd broken like 5 bones, dislocations, joint damage on my shoulder, my wrist, and my elbow. And dude, the maintenance work alone I'd have to do on this joint just to be able to clench a fist in the middle of winter is pretty gnarly. So
would you agree? And this is probably another, rehabbing is another thing. But would you agree that you have to, as soon as it's hurt, as soon as you get to a point where you can start working it, you have to do it as soon as possible? Because I feel like the longer that you let an injury sit, the more chance you have of not getting full range of motion, and it not being as strong as it could be. You have to pretty much force it to wake up. Like with the rear deltoid, it would be weird. I'd do one set like you said earlier, I now do everything unilaterally. So one arm at a time, the other arm at a time, because I'm so off balance. Because one side's way weaker than the other, so I do everything. Like at this point,
your brain responds better to that, because if you do it on the good arm first, you're replicating those like neural pathways and that motion, and your brain works off muscle memory, obviously. So the more you can do that and repeat that process, it does help with the damaged area.
That is a good idea. I always do my weak side first, because I just match however many reps and weight I can do with that side. But with my leg, this last injury where I broke my tib fib, I literally did what you just said and would walk and would watch, because my left leg I would just drag my foot against the floor and stuff. So I literally would watch my legs and stare at my right leg and watch it, like pick up my ankle and everything, and then just imagine and then make the other leg do the same thing. And it took me like a couple weeks of doing that, of actually like looking at them and focusing on articulating my left ankle the same as my right to get it to start to function correctly again.
Yeah, for sure. But again, you have a little bit of life experience and experience with injuries to teach you something like that, where you know it works. So I think a lot of it is the physio. Even if you have a good physio, he's going to say, okay, we're at X amount of weeks. Here's your band work. Here's your basic activation work, whatever it is. But you're the one that's got to do it and implement it, Yeah. So I think that's a big responsibility on the riders. And again, the majority of riders I work with, say in my pro group, so to speak, that are graduating juniors that are, 17, 19, 18, 20 years old. That's like the sort of age group. Like sometimes they're not particularly accountable or responsible. So it's, a lot of it is rider responsibility. You got to rehab your own body. Your trainer, your physio can only do so much,
Right. Well, I tell people, I wrote an article and I was like, listen, you can either force yourself to do stuff that hurts all day to get motion back, or you can wait till you go to physical therapy and have them force it in an hour. I would rather just all day try and move it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, you got to take your time and do it in the right time frame. You can't rush it and make things worse.
Yeah.
Which is another thing a lot of moto guys are guilty of, is they're so used to when they train, it's like they just want to ride as fast as they can. They just want to train as hard as they can. Hey, stop it. Sorry, my pug's getting annoyed.
Dungy?
He's not in the podcast.
Dungy's getting aggro?
Dunge is getting feisty. So, sorry, what were we saying?
About going too hard and hurting yourself instead of...
Yeah, going hard. And it's the same with rehab. You go, okay, you got to stand here with this bar and you have to do rotations in and out, up and down for 20 minutes on either arm. And they're like, really? That's not doing anything. And you're like, yeah, well, it is, but we can't even start doing presses and swings and all that stuff you want to do until you have a stable joint. And most of them will just skip that phase, you know? And they'll just, oh, yeah, they don't come back for a few weeks. Oh, it feels good, let's start lifting. And then you see them on the side of the track 3 months later with a blown knee or a blown shoulder again, you know? So,
yeah. Well, yeah, and because a lot of, so this is more away from trying to get off the injury thing, because that's like a whole nother podcast in itself. But, you know, like, and the best, like, people always try, like you said, progress too quickly. And you end up, you can make your muscles get strong fast, but the ligaments and tendons take longer to actually get stronger. So, like you said, you kind of have to, you know, do some prolonged stuff and work into it a little more. If you just try and go hard right off the bat and your tendons and ligaments aren't ready for it, then you end up injuring that stuff.
Well, that's the thing. And best case scenario, we'll probably, let's make this our last little injury point, because it's pretty much turned into an injury pod, but unfortunately that's moto.
Yeah.
You know, for me, is like when my guys go down and they go, oh, it's, you know, I go, is it broke? Oh, I can't tell. All right, well, let's go get some scans. If it's not, you know, obviously broken, if it's obviously broken and the parents, oh, he's just broke his tib fib, oh my God, I'm like, that's good, we're good. They'll plate that thing, they'll put some rods in it, he'll be fine. No long-term complications. You know, it'll be a little bit of a long road now, but, you know, or, oh, it's not broke, but he's done shoulder damage, he's done ankle damage, he's done, you know, dislocated this, dislocated that, and then you go, oh, okay, this is going to be a long road now. You know?
Joints and anything that articulates is always much worse than just breaking a bone.
100%. And I was super lucky, like, in my career, you know, not that I was a big deal as such, but, you know, I had a long time competing over the years with different disciplines. And I got through my entire competition life, not dislocated shoulders always pop straight back in. There any long-term damage, they'd pop out as I rolled and they pop back in by the time I'd hit the ground. I was always lucky with that. They never stayed out. I never had any major issues with my shoulders. It was still weak, but no long-term. But
well, I feel like... Sorry, go ahead.
So last year I did. I decided to race Supercross over here. So I hadn't raced for years. Anyway, trained, got fit, went to the first round. That's pretty embarrassing to say, but third lap of practice, first lap getting on top of the whoops, got a huckabuck, and instead of going down, my bike kicked, put my foot off the bike, and it hit the whoop sideways before my bike did, and it folded my knee in half. I did ACL completely, and I did a really bad tear MCL. So anyway, that was November of 2016, and you know, we're now a year past that. So I didn't get a reconstruction because my doctor said, well, what are you going to be doing? I'm like, well, as soon as I can ride, I got to ride, because I ride for a job as far as coaching and media and everything. So I'm not going to get a reco that I can't touch a bike for a year. It's just not going to happen. So my doctor's like, all right, cool. Well, your MCL is on the verge of needing surgery, but if you do the right rehab, it will reattach and strengthen. So I didn't get my reco done. I just did the rehab on my MCL and stabilized my knee. But it has took a year. Like, I rode a couple of times during the year and I couldn't ride. I just had no confidence in my knee. I rode one time maybe 6 months after, and I dislocated my knee again. And I've just started riding a week, like last week, and I've been doing the rehab like really full on for probably the last 2 months. And now I've been hitting my leg in ruts. I've been riding as you normally would, but it's took a year.
Yeah.
You know? And maybe I'm 30 years old now. Maybe if you took 8 years off me, it would have shaved off maybe 3 or 4 months. But man, my confidence on the bike was just gone. I couldn't turn left. You know, I just couldn't do it.
Oh, so shit, you were like Zoolander.
Yeah, I would do anything to avoid even photo shoots we were doing. I'd have to just do right-handed ruts because I couldn't. But anyway, so that's what I'm saying. Bringing it back to the point, I'd gone my whole career without having a major joint complication, and then to do that at my age was a very, very big learning curve for me to go, wow, like these guys that are coming to me with blown knees that maybe we rehabbed and I know they were good, but I just didn't quite know personally the relation to what they were going through, and now I do. So in a roundabout way, it's going to make me a better trainer. It's going to suck having the pain for the rest of my life, but there's again. Let's end it there with the injury talk.
Well, this actually brings us back around to training because what is, and I know the answer. What is the best way to avoid injuries? You're going to fall. Yeah. What is the best way to avoid really getting hurt? And that's being in the proper shape and being strong. Having the muscles around your knees and your shoulders and everything strong enough. It's inevitable, but you're going to be much better off and much less likely to actually hurt something really bad if you are in good shape and all your supporting muscles and ligaments and everything are strong to begin with.
100%, and this is what I say to my guys, and the parents don't like this sometimes, but I say, look, we train to hit the ground. That's what we do. And they kind of look at you a bit sideways, but, well, it's like you said, it's not if, it's when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So let's train so when we do hit the ground, we can minimize the damage.
And I would say with freestyle, that's almost the only reason you train, because I've never watched anybody style get better or tricks get better from getting in better shape. And as sad as that is to say, you may feel better, and I've definitely been in different levels of fitness throughout my freestyle career and flexibility, and you know what? My tricks never looked any cooler. Like, it was just, I was more prepared to fall off that thing and not spend 3 months, instead, a month or something, and you're all right.
And on that topic though, especially in free sports like freestyle, I know that the confidence and the mental aspect of that game is so strong. And there's typically 2 types of athletes in free sport, action sports, whatever you want to call it. And you can relate this back to Olympic snowboarding, quarter pipe, skateboard. Like, there's guys that when they're young, they just want to drink beer and party, and they'll just go send it because that's just what young guys do. And I'm sure you agree with most, like freestyle motocross, that's what the young ones do.
Well, yeah. I think it's changed now just because of the level that everything's at. I will say this for training and freestyle. The one thing that it does help in actually riding freestyle is your mind is a muscle, and when you start to fade, the first thing that's going to fade is your focus and your thinking. So being able to process more oxygen and keep yourself, alert longer so that you can avoid crashing or whatever is definitely a plus. But as far as actual riding ability and style and stuff, that doesn't necessarily get affected by it.
No, not at all. And like on that point you just made, I know personally, freestyle motocross, but this transfers over to big air, snowboarding, whatever. Let's just put it in the action sports category. If I feel strong and I feel confident that, hey, I'm disciplined, my body's in good shape, I'm tough in the gym, and I'm tough with my schedule, like my discipline. Well, hey, when I'm looking at this big jump, I got to go flip, and I don't want to do that. Well, it just carries on from the discipline you've learned through training. Whereas, And I think that was a big mistake I made. Like when I came out to you, for example, and I was staying with you guys and we were riding freestyle for those years. I just finished. I was 19, 20 years old. I just finished my racing career for the first time. And I got done and I've been training since I was 15 years old.
I did the same. So I did exactly what you're gonna say.
Yeah, and when I was done with it and I was doing freestyle and I was making a bit of money, like all I wanted to do, like, fuck man, I'm not training. I just want to party and this is what I'm doing now. And I look at the deterioration from when my body, when I first started freestyle to when I finished doing freestyle in that 3-year span. And I was injured. I was overweight. I was lethargic. I was depressed because this freestyle journey had come to an end because maybe I didn't take it as serious as I should have, and yeah, maybe had I have continued training and doing it properly and treating it as a job and treating it, my body needed to be respected and in shape to do it. Not that, man, I'm not talking like we were out there like a bad
doing blow all night or anything.
Doing all that. Not like we were doing that, but we were just having a good time, eating bad food, living on the road, and perhaps if I'd have took it a little more seriously, it would have had more longevity and I would have been a better freestyle rider because I'd have had more confidence. But instead, I would take the easy way out and be like, oh, well, I don't got to learn to flip because it's not going to make me that much more money, or, oh, I don't want to, you know what I mean? You've been through the different thought processes with it, and so is every other rider. So, yeah, I think the mental aspect of physical training and discipline and diet, again, I don't think you learn this till you get a bit older, but it definitely affects your performance on the bike. Doesn't matter what you do with it. With sport, it all relates back to your training, discipline, and transferring that into your performance,
So, let's talk a little bit about so I've been doing kettlebells a bunch, and I've literally ridden 4 or 5 times this year, and I actually went and rode to Englishtown. Since I don't have a district card, I just rode the amateur class.
Yeah.
And I was pretty sure, in the past when I didn't ride for a long time and then I went back to riding, my shoulders would get super tired. My shoulders and my back would fatigue first, before everything. And I've been doing a bunch of kettlebells because, the swinging is good for your shoulders. And I actually didn't get shoulder fatigue or lower back fatigue. So is that something that you guys try and implement in your, what types of exercises?
Well, again, to start with, you got to look at, you say shoulder fatigue and motocross. Well, what is shoulder fatigue and motocross, and why do we get it? Is motocross requires your body to be strong, stable, and coordinated in quite unorthodox positions and quite unorthodox range of motions, So, again, if you go lift your weights at the gym, you do your bench press, you do your shoulder press, your planes are very limited as far as what you're doing.
Well, and you're not engaging your core that much, and all these other you're just working on the major, your chest, your shoulders.
Exactly. And never once on a dirt bike are you working one muscle group at a time. Working every system you have, to your nervous system, to your aerobic, to your anaerobic, to your strength, everything, right? So what you're saying there is what kettlebells do is they challenge your body across a few different planes of motion. They engage your core. You're still using your legs. You're still using your stance as a base. And what that does is that's far more replicable to what you're doing on the bike. So that's why that fatigue, as you said, you have been riding, still replicating what your body requires when you do ride. So for me, like right now, as far as off season goes, is where we're at right now. We're doing a lot of the heavier lifting portion of the program. We're doing a lot of strength work. So, we are doing more traditional thing because we're trying to build strength in the joints, and we're just trying to get everything back to a base before we progress to the more challenging movements. So right now, if you look at this week, we've done. My dog is. I'm about to lose my mind with this puppy.
I'm assuming you're doing compound motions as well, though, when you say weight training, like deadlifts and stuff like that.
Yeah. A lot of deadlifts. A lot of legs. So basically, deadlifts, lunges, squats, one leg deads, stuff like that. And then for the upper body, at the moment, we are doing your stereotypical bench press, shoulder press, flies, that sort of thing, because we are just trying to get some stability and strength back in my guys' joints. But then moving forward, once we hit the preseason, which is coming real soon, January on, we will progress to.
All right, everybody. Joe's phone, or he got a call and it disconnected us. So using the Bozu ball, doesn't that wouldn't that help your like coordination and balance though?
It would 100%, but all I was getting at is when you're starting to implement a lot of different ranges of motion, like I said, if we're doing a lunge with a rotation, or we're doing a squat, then a press, or, you have to understand the principles of what you're trying to achieve. So like I just broke down that one movement into leg strength and endurance, being able to keep your core activated, keep your hips in line whilst you rotate, and then your shoulder strength to be able to extend away and rotate away from your torso. These are all things that are going to help you with motor. You've got your leg endurance, you've got your hip strength. Your leg endurance and strength, the ability to unlock your hips for a prolonged amount of time, which is obviously to roll them back to activate the backside of your body. Your core strength and endurance, your breathing, your shoulders. This is all stuff that it has a reward at the end of it, right? So we can break that movement down as to specifics as to why it's going to help us with motor. However, when you look at some of these other movements that I see on the internet, where it's, they're squatting on an exercise ball and balancing, and I don't know. Again, every trainer's got their thing and how they do things, but to me, are you putting all your effort into just balancing, or is there actually a strength reward off of this exercise that we can use on the bike? So definitely we do a lot of core movements on the Bosu balls, where we'll sit on them, or we'll use our feet on the Bosu ball for an elevated plank, where there's there's an uneven surface that we're challenging our core and our hips with. But just be sensible as far as maybe trying to do a personal best weight squat on an exercise ball is probably not the best thing to be doing as far as your health and safety goes. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, so, you definitely don't want to injure yourself training.
No, it's just being, number one, not being retarded, and number two, just being specific to what you're, dude, stop it. Trying to be specific to what you're trying to achieve,
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to put the dog outside. Give me 2 seconds.
All right.
I can still hear you, so ask your next question.
Okay. I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. But this is just a lesson for me that puppies are not pod proof. All right, so he won't be in the next one.
How old is he?
Dude, he's a year old, but he's a terror.
Yeah, that's
anyway.
Why.
So yeah, it's specificity, if that's a word. I'm gonna claim it and say it is.
Well, let's just write the Webster dictionary and tell them. Let them know. Yeah,
specificity to what we're trying to achieve. So, to summarize, and I'm gonna plug this. I forgot about this. I have an online training program which I believe you did some work on. I believe at one point.
I think you sent me that, and then I got hurt directly after it, and never actually ended up using it.
Right, so I'm gonna send you it again.
Okay.
And you can do some of the programs on there if you want. I think it would be good for you right now. But that's madonlinegym.com, and
I'll put a link in the show description as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. So we have I have a whole year mapped out with weekly planners, with periodized, off-season, pre-season, mid-season. And like I said, once we finished the season and the Supercross season, we were like October, and we've done the strength part of our off-season program, which is basically a lot of, like rehab, getting the joints back to where they need to be, a lot of more, traditional lifting movements just to get strength back in the joints. And now we will start progressing into the more intense pre-season with the more complex movements. Like I said, so you're sort of challenging your body on more than just one muscle group. So that's your strength side of things, like I said, where we're going to start implementing the movements with the kettlebells, the different ranges of motion, activating your core, using your legs, using your shoulders, using everything at the same time, and controlling your breathing, and being able to implement that into your program. And then that's the strength side of it. Then we move into, your actual high intensity and cardio based side of training as well, which is a whole other topic that needs to sort of be addressed is sort of, maybe not for freestyle or maybe your recreational trail riders, or, if they're just training to be able to ride, this isn't the most important part of the program. The most important part of the program for them would be their strength and conditioning. But, for your motocross, supercross racer, your cardio base and your anaerobic capacity is a huge component of your ability to race.
Absolutely. So let's kind of finish up on, now we've talked about all these exercises and stuff, but you don't do all this stuff every day, obviously. I mean, because that's a thing that, like you said, motocrossers, I know that when I was racing, I was super, eager to progress, and I felt like if I took a day off, then I was not making progress. And now, hindsight, looking back at my life, I was tired when I went to races. So I was already, in the hole at the races versus, taking a day or two off during the week or varying my training schedule, so that when I went to the races, I actually felt fresh.
100%. And look, on the bike, time is always priority. You have to maximize your time on the bike because it's probably the least accessible thing in your program. As far as for most people, going to the gym is a lot more accessible than going to the track, especially if you don't have your own track, especially if you live in a suburban area, Right. So when you ride, you got to be fresh. And I think what people get caught up in is they see the Alden Baker or the, just using that as an example, but your ESPN Supercross pre-show where it's like Ryan Dungey busts his ass every day, you know what I mean? And they're not going to show Ryan doing yoga stretches and drinking, hydrating himself and recovering, because who wants to see that? Right. They're going to show him on the spin bike probably that one time of the week where he was going to his absolute max,
Right.
Because that looks good on the hype on the pre-show.
Yeah. Well, how was your day? What's a day like in the life of Ryan Villapoto? And he's like, well, on Wednesdays I have Jamba Juice in the morning, and I go to the sauna and do a little yoga.
Yeah, and then, I maybe go for a little recovery jog or recovery bicycle in the afternoon, and that's about it. And you go, oh, okay, that's not that much.
Right.
And I think a lot of riders get caught up in the hype of like, I'm just going to train so damn hard, man, and I'm just going to, I'm going to train harder than anybody else. And yeah, by the time the season rolls around, you have a body system that's completely depleted, your nervous system shot, your immune system shot, and forget trying to compete at your best because you've already put yourself on the back foot, So
yeah. How many guys get mono from overtraining and things like that?
I mean, dude, there's mono, there's glandular fever, there's Epstein-Barr, like all of these. I don't know. I laugh because they're like the moto viruses, you call them, but they're all and again, I'm not a doctor, but they're kind of all in the same family of immune system, sort of attacking viruses that just fatigue the hell out of you, and they make you feel like a zombie, and you can't train, you can't do anything, and that's because you overtrained and your body got run down, and now you're going to pay the price. And you add in the travel schedule that moto guys have as well. You can't train balls out every day. You just can't do it. So to answer the question, what does a week look like? Well, Monday, at the moment, we don't ride. So Monday is our heaviest lifting day, and that'll go on a rotation of whether we're doing, a lot of lower body stuff, a lot of upper body work. Typically, it's no more than 20-minute cardio warm-up and mainly lifting. But even then, we're not going to train for more than about 90 minutes on our heaviest load day. Then typically we ride Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So on those days when we ride, we're still in the gym in the morning. I would prefer to do it the other way, but in Australia, the tracks don't open until lunchtime. So we can't ride first thing.
Right.
Which would make way more sense because right now it's like 100 degrees every day, and it would be really cool if we could ride before it was that hot. But anyway,
well, and also, wouldn't it be whenever I rode and went to the gym, I always tried to ride first, just so that I was fresh while I was riding, versus taxing the hell out of yourself and then trying to go and put some motos in.
100%. But unfortunately, when you get done at the track at 5 o'clock, you got to drive an hour home. You got to prep your bike for the next day. It doesn't leave us any time to train in the evening. So, but to get back to that, in the mornings on those days, we'll still do a pretty decent workout, but I'm not going to push my guys to their point of absolute fatigue. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be a variation of different cross-training routines where, you know, we're still going to do some deadlifts, we're still going to do some fast twitch work, like some box jumps, and we're going to do a lot of core and a lot of activation work. And between the cardio and the cross-training session, you know, they'll still train for an hour, but they're not going to leave that workout after we've stretched up feeling like they've just completely done. You know, we can still go out and do our motos, and we can still go out and do our stuff on the bike, and it's not going to affect them. Like, don't get me wrong, by the end of the ride session, they're pretty tired, but the gym session is not going to compromise that.
Right.
You know? But like I said, we're still doing the base for their physical fitness right now. When we get to February, March, and Nationals are going to start in April, we're going to be hammering out 30-minute motos. So am I going to have them in the gym that morning? Yeah, but it's going to be a light cardio warm-up, some stretching, a little bit of activation work, and that's really it. So I think the biggest part, I'm not going to get off topic, let me finish the week. So again, we'll ride Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll vary the training in the gym through those days to cover all our bases as far as a bit of strength, a bit of core, a bit of intensity, and some stretching and that side of things. Come Friday is, you know, depending on the workload of the week, we'll either do a full recovery day, which is literally light cardio, stretching, and that's it, or we'll go ahead and lift quite heavy again, even though it's at the end of the week, because then if they don't ride on the weekend and they're going to have the weekend off, they have time to recover. So if the schedule is we ride on the weekend, then they'll have a light recovery day Friday, and we'll ride again on the weekend and probably be in the gym on Saturday or Sunday doing a little bit more of a heavier lift day. If they're not going to ride on the weekend and they got stuff to do, then we'll just have a bit more of a strength-based day on Friday, and then they'll have their weekend to recover. So the thing with Moto is my guys they're training with me full-time, but they're not full-time professional athletes. Like, they don't have me on their beck and call to pay me big money and build their schedule around them. So there's always a little bit of variance with what we do, just with, hey, I got to go get my motor built today. I'm not going to be able to go to the gym. I got to go see my motor guy. He's 3 hours away, or you know what I mean? So it's more of a what works each week situation. I wish it was more scheduled and regimented, but sometimes it's just, you know, can't be the case. But yeah, it's just making it work the best you can with the routine you have, you know.
But you have to take your easy days. You have to have your days off so that when you show up at the track on the weekend, you're ready to, you know, to really drop the hammer and leave it all out there.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess that's the biggest thing people need to understand is that everyone leaves it too late, I feel. Because what most people do is they get done with the season, they're like, all right, season's over, man. I'm going to chill until, you know, for us, we have motocross from April to August, and then we have supercross from September to November. So what the guys do is they go, all right, summer's here. All right, I get to chill for the next 3 months. And then they go February, all right, I'm going to start my preseason. I've still got 3 months till national start. You go, okay, well, yeah, you do. But once you're traveling and riding properly, and when I say properly, we're doing 30-minute motos, we're doing sprints. Like, our intensity is now on the bike, not off the bike. Very difficult to actually find the energy and time to do your strength training and to get your joints strong and to get the most out of what you're doing in the gym, because you're traveling, you're working on your bike, you're riding, you don't have time, right? So you've got to break it down into, we achieve all of my guys' strength gains before the new year, you know, and then after that, it's just maintenance. Because once we get into the high intensity workouts, the miles on the road bike, the running, and the stuff that's more related to trying to find the aerobic and anaerobic, area that we need to go do our 30-minute motos and last that distance. We're not worried about how much we can lift anymore. We've already done that. And then we just maintain with a couple of strength sessions a week. We're not looking to find any more strength. You know what I mean?
I feel like taking a lot of, like, you got to take some time off, but I feel like you said, taking a ton of time off isn't beneficial anyway, because now not only have they not been doing strength training, well, not only are they not making gains, they're actually losing because they haven't done, if they haven't done anything, now you're at a deficit.
100%. And you're supposed to be a professional athlete or an aspiring professional athlete. And if you broke that down to a team sport environment, like NFL or NBA, like those guys don't get much of an off season. Even if the season's 5 months away, boot camp starts, because they are a huge investment on their team, and their team wants to make sure that once the season gets here, they are 100% ready to go. And it's not saying that they're going to come to the first race or the first game of the season. Like for my guys, I say to them, look, we're not going to hit round one and be at peak fitness because we've got a long season. We don't want to be fatigued and tapering off at the end of the year. That's all how you program it. But, taking off that 3 months, well, you're already at a deficit. You're trying to play catch up to the guys that have had a good off season, and their strength and their body is in where they want it. It's in good shape. And now they can focus on the next step, and you're trying to do it all at once. You're trying to work on your, and to bring, I know it's not about technique and coaching, but while we're doing this strength and more, taxing training on your body, we're doing 10 and 15-minute motos. We're not doing 30-minute motos. We're doing technique, and we're doing things that they need to work on now, because when we get to the preseason, they're not going to have time to worry about if they're clutching it 3 times in a corner or if they're using their back brake too much, because they're hammering down and they're trying to get fast. And you can't do endurance and technique at the same time. You can't do strength and 30-minute motos at the same time. Like, right. You have to break it down into what's going to benefit you,
And I do feel like cardio hangs on a little longer than strength. So
100%.
Like, having a good cardio base, like I can still. Man, I was hurt for months, and it was like I couldn't, when I got back to doing anything, I literally could not tax my cardio system because my body didn't allow me to even put my lungs to to the test because of what I had done, the capacity I was able to work at before. You know?
But you're also a guy that's done cardio for a long time.
Right, true.
Lot, some people's body types do not lend themselves to be in that cardiovascular fit naturally, So again, your body type is a big proponent here as to what your training program is going to need from your trainer, from your coach, whatever. But yeah, I think to summarize that point is that just because it's the off season, why can't you go to the gym? If you don't want to ride for a month, or you get your new bike deals done, or you're trying to find sponsors, all right, well, don't ride for 6 weeks, don't ride for 2 months, whatever.
Yeah, do something.
But do something. Don't just sit there, eat pizza and drink beer, and then be like, oh, got my new bikes, better go ride,
Yeah.
Downtime's important, structure's important, and I think every good program, every good coach will give you. I call my guys, I'm like, we need to start training. We need to start, I'm just having it. Nah, we've had too much time off. You're not going to be ready. And and sometimes I'll do it 3 or 4 times. And if they're not calling me back or they're not wanting to do it, I'll just wait for the call in February. Be like, hey, man, I'm ready to start my preseason now. And it's like, well, yeah, we're pushing shit uphill now, but I'll still train you. But then we have to do this big mix program where I try and incorporate the best part of everything to get them somewhat ready in 2 months,
Right.
And yeah, it's not ideal. Sometimes you just have to do it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I think that was a good. That's a good first one, and I think it gives everybody a base of what training for motocross looks like versus. Trying to be Mr. Olympia or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, for those listening, and I kind of hate this part of it because you put yourself out there on the internet, and you know, especially with the fitness industry and everything, people are so quick to criticize and no, this is the way you do it. That's the way you do it. Like I haven't owned a gym for 2 years. I sold up. I've been a team manager. I've been doing that side of the sport for a while. So I think if we'd have had this conversation a couple of years ago, I could have gone into far more detail as far as like programming and reps and percentages and how it all works. But honestly, dude, like I'll be honest, I'm starting to learn all this again myself now. I'm training guys full time again. Is that it is a learning curve again. I'm not that guy that says I know everything, because I don't. And that's the biggest thing, is that you got to take what you can from different programs, different trainers, you know, as a rider, and you got to figure out what works for you and why that works for you. But you can't just be blind to follow everybody. You got to be responsible for your own program a little bit. And the same as trainers, you know, we've got to keep educating ourselves and finding better ways to do things. And I'm definitely in that category, as I don't know everything, that's for sure.
Well, and I mean, like you just said, you know, some people go to Alden Baker and kill it, and then there was, I forget, a couple of people left and then did better. And it was just like that training style didn't work for them. And that's all it is.
That's it, you know, and Alden's at that top 1% of the game, where he has his program and it's very stringent, it's very strict. They probably don't do as much work as people think they do. It's more, he monitors everything for ensuring they don't get fatigued, they don't overwork. But you know what? Some guys don't want to be robots, you know, and you got to keep it fun. Like if you're not happy in your everyday life, it doesn't matter what you're doing on and off the bike, you're not going to perform on race day. The stress you go through, yeah, and that goes for freestyle too. Like if there's guys listening to this that ride freestyle or race or do supercross or do any action sport, like how many times did you go to a show, Clint, over the years where you just had some, I don't know, man, you had bills going on, or you just broke up with your chick, or you had some sort of external stress that normally you'd get on your bike and wouldn't even think about what you're doing. But because you're so mentally fatigued right now, you're not happy within yourself, well, how are you going to perform? How are you going to block that shit out? Not a lot of people can. And you know what? Some guys want to chill with their friends and not be told they can't eat this or they can't eat that. You know what I mean? And to them, if they have that freedom, that's going to give them enough of a freedom where they're going to come back and train the next week and feel happy. Some guys need Sergeant Slaughter yelling at them, you know, give me one more, man. You know, they need that. And I got guys I train at the track where I'll come in and they know they rode shit. They don't need me to tell them. And we just go, okay, well, this line, that line, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, let's just fix it. But if I yelled at those guys and said, what the hell was that, you useless, you know, they would go the other way and go, fuck this, like, I don't want to do it, you know?
Yeah,
but then there's other guys that come in.
I put a lot of pressure on myself already, so somebody else yelling at me doesn't help me anymore. I'm already down if I did bad.
Yeah, some people internally are very noisy up top. They don't need any more noise. They just need calm and reassurance and help. And then other guys, I have to grab by the helmet nearly and be like, what the F are you doing? I'm wasting my time. You know, if you do that again, you're off the program. I'm done, you know?
Yeah.
And then the race, they'll go out and kill it. You know what I mean? So normally that's the younger guys typically. Once you're a bit older, you're a bit more self-accountable. But again, what works for you, you got to figure out. And those programs like Roxon left Alden, Cincerella left Alden, not bagging Alden's program, is, you know, one of the premiers in the sport, but maybe those personality types didn't gel with that stringent program, and that's just how you got to look at it, you know?
Yep, for sure. Everybody's like you said, everybody's different, and everybody's got to be accountable for themselves on some level, whether it's what diet works for you or your training or anything like that. And like you said, it's a lot of it is being happy. If you're not happy, then you're not going to perform that good.
No, and young guys especially, they don't know how to deal with their emotions because they're experiencing a lot of it for the first time, and everything's a massive deal in their head, but in reality it's not. But they just got to learn to process it and not keep it all in and internal everything, and then they explode internally. They don't perform. Stress, pressure, like you got to be happy. And that's one of the things I try and do with my guys. Like we have fun, we talk a lot of smack. You got to keep it fun. I make fun of everyone makes fun of me. I'm the the old trainer that's trying to ride with the young kids and still hang and give up, old man, sort of thing. And you gotta keep it fun, man, because otherwise, what's the point? It's supposed to be fun, even though you're trying to make a living at it, like it's meant to be. That's why we all got into it in the first place, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I at one point had to like find with freestyle. I was doing shows so much that I got over riding, and I finally got to a place where like I learned how to ride for fun and ride for pay, and that's I would go and to tracks, or we'd go and free ride, or even we'd like be at Chuck's house, and after we'd get done trying to flip and all that, me and J-Ro would find some little 20-foot hip on the side of a landing and ride that thing for 30 minutes, and just laugh about it and just try and, do stupid stuff. So
and it's something that I think the kids don't do anymore because the sport has got so, even freestyle, I mean, far out, man, like what they're doing nowadays. You look at the top dudes like, say, Tom Pages or something, like how you even, it's not a fun sport no more.
No.
With that side of things, like you're not going, oh, I'm going to do a double flip, I'm going to do a body varial. This is fun. No, you're going, if I mess this up, I'm really going to the hospital, like a lot. And there's a few personality types out there that, have crazy energy and they don't get scared, like a Travis or something. But for everybody else, it's life or death. It's scary. Same as when a supercross race is looking down a rhythm and he's got to go 3, 3, 4. You probably don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But he has to do it to get paid, get a race result, win a competition. But for the kids now, that's all they see. Back in the day when we had the Krusty videos and we had that previous generation, you saw Jeremy McGrath going out doing knack-knacks and doing stoppies and wheelies and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having fun, even though he was still winning everything. But nowadays, like, you ain't going to see Dungy on a documentary goon riding with Alden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't happen.
I would say that Roxon's the closest to that super top level that still seems like, obviously he puts in the work, but he seems like he does let loose and have a good time. You know who else? Well, a lot of the freestyle guys, it's pretty impressive. I don't know. Out of the super top guys, I would say like Clinton Moore and Harry Bink seem to still be loose and have fun and not get so serious until I guess they probably put their helmet on and roll out onto the floor for the actual show. But
yeah, and I don't know Clinton super well. I've met him a couple of times. Harry stays down here quite a bit, and he actually trained in my gym quite a bit a few years ago with Cam Sinks and a few of the other guys, and they do keep it pretty chill. They keep it fun. But Harry, I think he's one of them personality types that, again, I don't know him super well, but I hung out with him a little bit, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'll go try that. Like, he's not scared at all.
Yeah.
Like, the fear kind of gets him going, I guess. But for every one of them that's going to go, yeah, I'll just do a front flip rock solid, like whatever. There's 100 guys that are going to weigh up why they're doing it and if it's actually worth it.
Well, here's something that I've always said about freestyle, and it's how good you get before you scare yourself. I don't think that, and I don't know, because I only met Harry once as well. For like we were down at X Fighters, so I was kind of around him a bit, but I forgot where I was going with that.
Like how far had he progressed before he had his major injuries?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, people that get on a dirt bike for the first time and whiskey throttle into a tree probably don't enjoy riding that much. But then you got other guys like a Jack Rowe is a good example. Jack got really good before he hurt himself. He was already super gnarly, then got hurt, then jumped back in at the exact... you can always get back to that same level. It's now trying to push yourself past that, how scared you are.
100%. And I think that relates to racing as well. Like, you see a lot of amateur guys go pro, and you can relate this to any sport, but they go pro and they get hurt at their first professional race for a year. And then everybody that they graduated with stayed healthy for a year, and then the next season, the guys that he used to battle with, well, they're now winning. They're on the podium, and he's still in 10th because he never got that progression. And that's what I say to my guys. I'm like, when you go pro, you got 3 years. I'm like, if you can stay healthy, get results, and get a ride, and actually put some results in on a ride, you'll get a ride for the next 5 years because you got a ride and you stayed healthy and people know you're reliable. But if you get hurt at the second pro race you ever do, you've lost a year of progression instantly. And you see so many amateur phenoms that I think Kyle Chisholm and there's a couple others that are still around when they graduated. Yeah, like he used to beat James Stewart and stuff, right? But I think they got injured right away. Like Zach Bell's another one. He had that crazy crash.
Where's he? That crash pretty much ended his career.
Yeah, he races desert racing now and probably doesn't make a living from racing, but he was one of the best amateur racers ever, I think, from what I heard. And he's gone, and that's the thing. And that's a good way to put it, what you just said, is what level you can get to before the injuries draw you back, because you're always going to get back to that level,
Right. And it's not even necessarily a physical impediment. It's more of a mental.
9 times out of 10, I don't know, people put a percentage on it, but if you had a percentage pie, a very big part of it, of this sport, would be mental, because it's fast, so you got to be able to do it under pressure, a track you're not comfortable with in a short period of time. For freestyle, everyone can do tricks, everyone can jump ramps, but it's going to that setup, being able to throw down, second hit, you know what I mean? Like whatever you're...
Like the X Fighters in Mexico City in that tight little arena, and it's like, sure, you can, and I told people, they go, what do I need to do to be able to do freestyle? What tricks? It's not what tricks. It's, can you, on polished concrete, on grass, on gravel, you know what I mean? In a parking lot, with a wall 50, 60 feet after the landing. Like, those are the things you need to deal with. It's not necessarily, there's a ton of people that can ride. It's being able to not freak out and stay calm and be able to ride in any situation. And that's one thing I wouldn't say I was never the best, but I was really good at. Listen, we were the squad that got stuck in all the teeny shitty buildings, and with the promoters that are like, we're gonna have you jump over here, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I would pride myself in being like able to at least perform in way less than ideal conditions.
And that is half of the game, if not more. I mean, I always say to people go, oh, I rode freestyle in America for a couple of years. I was on tours. Well, back no, man, I was doing pretty basic tricks, but the promoter knew, whether I rode for you or somebody else, that for the most part, yeah, Joe's not doing X Games level tricks, but if you point him at this ramp setup, he's not going to whiskey throttle into the crowd. He's not going to come up short and destroy your landing. Like, he's going to be able to do it safely and go home. And half the time, it's the same as, you can relate that back to, I say this to my guys with racing and training. I go, look, the guy that's winning this, the guy on the weekend that's different during the week. Oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. No, he ain't doing nothing different. He's doing exactly what he does riding a 30-minute moto at his house. He's doing that on the racetrack in front of thousands of people under pressure. He's just riding his bike like he knows how. He's not letting all these external influences mess him up. And when you say that to riders, they go, huh? And you sort of see them go, oh, hang on. Because they think when they go to the races, they've got to do stuff different. Same as the freestyle guys think they've got to go to a show and do stuff different. It's like, no, you just got to be able to do what you do under pressure.
Yeah, on a awkward. Well, it's probably the percentage is even bigger in racing, but for anybody that's a Harry Bink, Clint Moore, or Thomas Pages, there's 75 dudes that are just doing shows, doing the more basic tricks, and still making money or making a living at it.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, it's being able to take risks calculated and just do it to the best of your ability without letting the external pressure get to you. And that's why there's only a handful of champions in whatever sport you're talking about, is because not many people are cut from that cloth that can perform at their best like they do when there's no pressure thing to do. And it takes time and experience to learn how to do it. But, you know, it's kind of the cornerstone for success is being able to do what you know how to do and don't do any different when you're under pressure. I repeat that to my guys all the time. And I wish I had someone say that to me. You know, I didn't start getting coached and trained until I was 19, 20 years old. It was too late for me. Like, me and my dad have been going to the races for years, and if I didn't do good, I was under so much internal pressure, and then my dad's trying to hit me with a pit board when I go past the freaking start because I'm not doing good, and it's such a big deal, and everything's getting to you, and before you know, you just go, fuck this, I'm done, this is too hard, why am I not progressing? And if you just had someone in your ear saying, hey man, this is not, you're not riding wrong here, you know?
Yeah.
And I think when you get to a certain level of rider, it stops being about how they're riding and more what they're doing mentally.
Yeah, for sure. There's another, there's a good book that actually Javier introduced me to called M.A.D. Gym. And
yeah, you have to read it a few years ago. I remember.
It's really good about the mental process and stuff like that. We were talking about riding the same. I used to tell Javier, I suck, but I suck the same everywhere. No matter if it's raining or if it's slick or whatever.
Dude, that book, I always say to my guys, right, and let's not get too carried away with this, but there's an analysis, and he's talking to, I think it's a baseball player or something, and he goes, all right, close your eyes and picture the best swing you ever did and the best home run you ever hit or whatever it was, like basketball. But anyway, use this as an example. And the baseball player's like, yeah, I can see it. And he's like, okay, so what was the weather like? Yeah, it was sunny. There was no wind, you know, whatever. It was a beautiful day. There was my chick in the stands. Like, everything was good that day. All right, cool. Okay, now take the worst swing you ever did, and you got struck out, and picture that. Okay, I can picture it. Okay, what was the day? Oh, it was fucking windy. It was raining. My chick just dumped me. The coach was going to cut me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the dude's like, all right, well, what's the one thing that both of these good and bad days have in common? And the guy can't tell him. And he goes, well, you were there. You were swinging the bat, and you were doing what you knew how to do. He's like, the only difference was one day everything was awesome in your life, and the other day all these external stresses got to you. So it's like, it's the same person doing the good and bad.
Hey, we got a dog. Yeah, they were like, your talent didn't change. What changed? You still have the same. You're still the same person. You still have the same talent.
Yeah.
All that changed was
the talent. Right.
Your perception of the day or how you felt.
Exactly, and that is something I took to my guys a lot, is being self-aware, which not a lot of guys are.
Agreed. Let's end it on that.
At least.
Let's end it on that, and we'll I'll maybe in the future we'll do one on just rehab, or I'm gonna definitely have Javier on and talk about the mental side, because that's the strongest, like the mentally strongest dude that have been that close to. Somebody that's I don't know. Chuck's pretty good as well. Although I think Chuck liked to scare himself, so I think it's a different scenario. I don't
know if Chuck. I don't know. Man.
I think Chuck liked to be scared, so I think that's a different one. But I've watched Javier in a lot of situations and always rides exactly the same.
That's it. And I think there's two types of people you can talk with. There's a guy like myself who I feel learned from the mistakes of perhaps putting too much pressure on himself, not being the most mentally strong, but was still able to ride at a decent level. And then you can educate people because of your mistakes and how not to do it. Then there's the guys like Javier and the gnarly dudes, the Moto, Supercross, whatever, and you can just straight out talk to them about how they do it, you know, because honestly, I don't know how you switch off and go double flip something. Like, I wasn't that gnarly to do that, but some guys are. I don't know, like they are just able to block it out.
I think a lot of it's like we talked about earlier, preparation and feeling like, okay, I can handle this.
Yeah, it's, you know, that's a whole nother level of mental strength. I'll give them that.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Send me that. Let me say whatever your website is again.
Yeah, so I got two websites. The online gym program is M.A.D, so M.A.D onlinegym.com, and then my motocross training website is mxathletedevelopment.com.
Hey.
And you can Instagram at JS_Joe Stevens. There's a lot of training videos on there and stuff I do with my guys, like what we're doing in the gym that day, what we're doing at the track that day. And yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I think I got a little sidetracked a bunch of times. I hope people can keep up with my.
No, it's all good. This was the base, and I mean, but I think all the stuff we talked about obviously pertains. So I mean, in the future, we'll just go into individual, rehab and stuff like that, individual topics. But this was just a blanket over the whole exactly fitness thing, which unfortunately in our sports, injury is a huge deal with fitness. So.
It is. That's the first question or the first point I raise. I start talking about a rider, and the first thing I go to is injury. So it's something that, as much as maybe it wasn't the starting topic, it is a big part of the sport. So, but yeah, I hope everyone listening gets something out of it, and feel free to drop me a line and hit me up if you have any training questions, and I can be a little bit more specific over email or whatever, and I'll shoot you that login to Clint for the online gym so you can take a look at the programs and do some of them.
Perfect. Yeah, and just shoot me the all the links you want in the show description, your Instagram and all that stuff, and I'll hook it all up.
Sounds good, man.
All right,
man. Well, thanks a lot. Happy holidays, y'all, as you Americans would say.
Well, I wouldn't say y'all here. I would say you guys.
You guys, y'all.
All right. Later, buddy.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. See ya.
Yeah. Why won't this thing stop recording?
I love how they decide they want to fucking play together awesome when you're doing your freaking show. They were playing like awesome together. Like, why can't they do that? Marley, come back. Man.
Hello. Is this thing still recording? Yeah, it is. Stop. No, I mean, I'm going to edit this out. It won't stop.
Get it, Mark.